Right. So you buy one sofa, just the one, lovely, comfortable, exactly the shade you wanted. And within a month, you've repainted a wall, bought a new rug, swapped the lamp, and quietly binned a coffee table that, and I want to stress this, had done absolutely nothing wrong. That's not you developing good taste. That's not the room finally coming together. That's a 250-year-old psychological trap with your name on it. And today, we're meeting the man who fell into it so hard he went into actual debt over a dressing gown. Let's give the sofa a name, because it's going to keep coming up. We'll call him Simon. Simon didn't ask to ruin your living room. Simon just turned up, sat there being lovely, and within about 4 days, started silently judging the curtains. You know the look. You walk in, catch the room in your peripheral vision, and for a split second you think, when did all of this get so tired? Nothing in the room changed. Simon changed. And Simon is extremely smug about it. This actually has a name, and it isn't new. In 1769, a French philosopher called Denis Diderot was given a gift, a beautiful scarlet dressing gown, proper nice bit of kit, and Diderot loved it, for about a week. Because the thing about a genuinely nice scarlet dressing gown is that it makes everything else in the room look like it's been dragged out of a skip. Diderot's study, before the gown, was a mess in the way everyone's study is a mess. A plain straw chair, a wobbly old writing table piled with books, a threadbare rug, a few prints just stuck to the wall with nothing framing them. He never noticed any of it. It was just his study. Then the red gown turned up, and suddenly the straw chair looked like a joke next to it. So the chair got swapped for a leather armchair. Then the old writing table looked wrong next to the armchair, so that went too, replaced with a proper desk. Then the rug looked like it had been fished out of a canal, so he brought in one imported from Damascus. Then he needed a mirror over the mantelpiece, and a gold clock, and some real paintings instead of the loose prints. By the end of it, the man had refitted an entire study because somebody gave him a dressing gown, and he went into debt doing it. He wrote the whole miserable spiral up himself, in an essay literally titled, "Regrets on Parting with My Old Dressing Gown," which is either the most self-aware thing a philosopher has ever written, or a cry for help. Possibly both. And here's the bit that should make you slightly uncomfortable. You have done this. Not with a dressing gown, with a phone case. New phone arrives, gorgeous, and for about 4 minutes, you're thrilled. Then you notice the case you've had for 2 years, the one that was completely fine yesterday, suddenly looks like something you found on a bus. So you buy a new case. Then the earbuds you own look chunky and beige next to the new phone, so you get the new earbuds too. Nothing about your old case or your old earbuds got worse overnight. You got a phone. The phone just made everything standing next to it look guilty by association. 200 years after Diderot went bankrupt over a dressing gown, an anthropologist called McCracken looked at exactly this pattern and gave it a name for the modern world, the Diderot Effect. McCracken's point in a 1988 book called Culture and Consumption was that we don't actually own objects one at a time in our heads, we own them in sets. He called these sets Diderot unities. The phone, the case, and the earbuds all have to match. The sofa, the rug, and the lamp all have to agree with each other. The trainers, the jacket, and the bag all have to be singing from the same hymn sheet. And when one item in that set gets upgraded, your brain doesn't file it as nice new thing, unrelated to the rest. It files it as the new standard the rest of the set now has to hit. Everything that used to match the old thing suddenly clashes with the new thing. Not because it changed, because the reference point changed. And here's the sentence I actually want you to sit with. You didn't suddenly need new stuff. The new thing made your old stuff feel like a problem it invented. Your rug was fine on Tuesday. On Wednesday, you bought a sofa. And by Thursday, the rug was an emergency. The rug didn't do anything wrong. The rug is just standing there, minding its own business. And Simon rolled in and made it look poor by comparison, without lifting a cushion. This is also why one nice pair of trainers can quietly end a friendship with your entire wardrobe. You buy the trainers because your old ones had a hole in them. Fair enough, reasonable purchase. Except now you put on the jeans you've worn every week for 2 years and they look somehow deflated next to the trainers. So you buy new jeans. Now, the hoodie looks like a bin bag next to the jeans. This is how a man who needed new trainers ends up, 4 weekends later, owning an entirely new outfit and still wearing the exact same personality underneath it. Same story in the kitchen. Someone buys one genuinely excellent stand mixer. Lovely bit of kit, does the job beautifully. Except now it's sitting on the counter next to the kettle you've had since a previous relationship, and the kettle suddenly looks like evidence from a crime scene, so the kettle gets replaced. Then the toaster looks wrong next to the new kettle. Within a month, you've got a kitchen that looks like a showroom and a bank balance that looks like an actual crime scene instead. And the big one, the house move. You move into a new place, buy one genuinely nice thing for it, a sofa, a bed frame, whatever it is, and suddenly the flat you were happily living in for 3 years is somehow not good enough for the sofa. 6 months later, you've replaced the curtains, the shelving, the dining table, and possibly your entire personality, and you still haven't unpacked half the boxes from the actual move. So why does this work on us? Why does one good thing make everything around it look bad instead of just being one good thing and minding its own business? Part of it is simple contrast. Your brain judges things relative to whatever's sitting right next to them, not in isolation. Put a brand new anything next to something a few years old, and the old thing loses every single time, regardless of whether it was actually doing its job perfectly well. But the deeper part is what McCracken was really getting at. We don't experience our possessions as a pile of random objects. We experience them as a coherent picture of who we are. A slightly shabby room felt totally fine when the whole room agreed on being shabby. One posh sofa breaks the agreement. Suddenly the room isn't comfortably lived in anymore. It's inconsistent, and your brain hates inconsistency almost as much as it hates leaving money on the table. Quick one before we carry on. If you know someone whose one new lamp somehow became an entire living room refurb, send them this video right now. They'll either laugh or go very quiet and start looking at their curtains funny. Either way, that's a like from us. Right. Back to it. Because there's a cousin of this effect we need to talk about. It's a cousin of something we've talked about on this channel before, lifestyle creep, where your spending quietly rises to match your income until you're skint on a salary that used to feel like winning the lottery. Same family, different mechanism, so don't get them confused. Lifestyle creep is, I earn more, so I spend more. The Diderot effect is sneakier than that, because it doesn't need a pay rise at all. One single purchase, at any income, can set off the spiral, because it was never about what you can afford. It's about what suddenly looks wrong standing next to the new thing. And the properly uncomfortable bit is this. You didn't upgrade your life. You downgraded everything you already owned retroactively, just by standing something nicer next to it. The rug didn't get worse. Your opinion of the rug got worse. That's not a home improvement. That's a mood, and you're financing it on a credit card. So what do you actually do with this, other than never buy anything nice again and live like a Victorian orphan out of spite? You don't need to stop buying things. You just need to catch the exact moment your brain quietly redraws the line. Next time you buy something you genuinely love, and you feel that little twitch, that flicker of, hang on, does the rest of this room look a bit off now? That's not new information about the rug. That's just Simon the sofa doing what Simon does, which is making everything around him look bad on purpose, smugly, without saying a single word. Remember the sofa from the start. That's your one nice sofa, comfortable, exactly the shade you wanted. It never once asked you to repaint the wall. It never asked for a new rug. It just sat there existing, and you did the rest. The same way Diderot's dressing gown never asked for a leather armchair or an imported rug or a gold clock. A man built an entire spiral around a coat because it made everything else look sad standing next to it, then ended up broke and mildly furious about it, in writing, for the rest of us to read as a warning label 250 years later. So here's the one useful thing to actually take from all this. Before you buy the matching item, the rug, the case, the trainers, the jeans, the entire refurbished kitchen, ask yourself one honest question. Did the new thing actually improve your life? Or did it just make your old life look bad by standing next to it? Because one of those is a genuine upgrade, and the other one is just Simon the sofa, smug on your sofa, quietly starting a war with your curtains that you were always going to lose. That's the Diderot effect. A French philosopher, a dressing gown, and your bank account, still somehow connected 250 years later. We do one of these every week, a different weird way money gets inside our heads, so subscribe now, unless you'd like your subscriptions page to look a bit shabby next to everyone else's, and we both know exactly how you feel about things looking shabby next to nicer things.